What's up? It's me, MC Matador here, and today I am bringing you my Maxx Force review at Six Flags Great America. I didn't make a prelude slide, but I'll just go over a couple basics before I start reviewing this ride in the typical categorical fashion I usually do it in. I got my first ride on Maxx Force on soft opening day for season pass holders on July 3rd, and when I went last time this past Tuesday, July 8th, July 9th, I think July 9th. I went July 9th and I rode it another 4 times. Almost every single ride I've been on has been in the back, except for two, which I had one in row 7 and one in row 3. They do not let you choose your seats. This is why I've kind of gotten everywhere, but I typically do. For some reason, I just get thrown in the back more often than not. And I'm going to go into my full thoughts on this ride, describe each and every basic categorical value in a roller coaster sense, and just give a general score, and then compile my thoughts at the end. And yeah, okay, there we go. The drop. Yeah, this coaster doesn't really have a drop, so to say, or at least a traditional drop. It does have a drop after the second inversion, after what I like to call the dog tongue, which is that massive double inversion that the ride starts going into after the launch. It does beat several of the other drops of Great Americans, and it also a functional dive loop. It's a fine drop, it also does pick up an adequate amount of speed going into the rest of the ride, since you don't really have another downhill portion until you dive loop into the brake run. So yeah, I think it's a fine drop, but overall, I mean, it's very unorthodox, but it gets the job done, and the dive loop's quite fun as well. So solid 7 out of 10 for the drop. It probably beats the wooden coaster drops and other stuff at the park as well. The intensity. Now this thing is nuts, to be honest. It's not the most intense ride in the nation, because I think things like Sky Rush, Maverick, I-305 have got, maybe Maverick is a bit much. Sky Rush and I-305, Dodonpa have this thing beat, but it definitely is the most intense ride in the park by a significant margin. Nonstop speed, acceleration, well-paced action, the launch and low sweeping turns do pull, or the low sweeping turn after the bottom of the drop do pull some great positive G's, especially if you're sitting in the back and you get the most time on that launch pad. We'll talk more about the launch when we get to that category at the end. But yeah, this thing is a complete rush. But the cost of that complete rush ends up being in the duration. This has been the well-known Achilles heel of the ride. It's been very short, likely less than 1,500 feet of total track on this thing. Packed into a rather small and narrow space in the pictorium and a grassy field that between the rail directly where the railroad used to be, but mostly took over the spot where the pictorium was, and then took a little bit of space behind towards the backside of Whizzer that was open between that Whizzer and the footpath to get into Hurricane Harbor. I was hoping that they'd tear down or relocate the path from Hurricane Harbor, so that they had more room to work with this thing, possibly make this thing quite a bit longer. But that's more hypothetical. The length suffers more than it could have. But all in all, from the launch to the brakes, this ride lasts about 21 seconds, and it does feel short, I will say, but it gives riders a very large rush of adrenaline, and I can kind of give it a pass for that. It's very effective at what it does, and honestly, I'm okay with the length for how it is. It's still definitely short, but overall, I think it does feel like one massive element, which is what the designer of the ride did say it was like. It's non-stop action, and the duration kind of compensates for it, but still, it's getting a 3 out of 10. It's way too short. It's like your dragster type of stuff. Airtime. This is not the ride's strong suit. There are a few decent pops with lateral, negative, and even hang time in certain spots. Particularly that 90-degree stall before the final inversion. The 0G roll has some good whip to it, and the transition into the first inversion if you're sitting in the back does give a nice pop of airtime. But, yeah, there's not really too terribly much. Like I said, this ride is not known for airtime. It's known for being fast, for being well-paced, for being forceful. it's mostly for speed and intensity this thing's known for, not for airtime. That being said, I do want to see a definite airtime machine in the park somewhere. That's I'll probably make a different video discussing maybe a renovated make yourself the boss or whatever. I still got to bring back that series. But yeah. And anyway, I'm talking more about Maxx Force here. I don't want to get sidetracked. The airtime's a 3 out of 10. It's better than some of the things like Superman, Batman, X-Flight, but it's still not known for airtime. You're going to get better airtime on Viper, Eagle, Bull, Goliath especially. Yeah. Smoothness. This thing is quite smooth, which is, well, expected for being new. I will say there is a vibration or a rattle of sorts, but it's not as jarring as Bull and Goliath are in certain spots, but it is definitely noticeable. There can be some vibrations that you feel, especially in that low sweeping turn. I think it's the most vibration heavy area, but overall it does not detract from the ride, and it gets a 10 out of 10 for smoothness. This thing is very smooth. I'm not going to say glass smooth, but it's very smooth. The restraints. Honestly, these restraints are very good. I very much like these restraints. It comes with a lap bar that is rather accommodating, and it comes with square shin guards, which I think are kind of comparable, but better than RMC's lap bars with shin guards. RMC focuses on a more vertical or circular design, while S&S / Vekoma focuses on a square design for these things. And honestly, I think they're also quite accommodating for taller guests. I'm 6'2", and I fit with very little issues into these restraints. I've heard people as tall as 6'6" or 6'8" have very little problem fitting in these things. They're very comfortable. I have no complaints with them. There is also a seatbelt, which it can be a little tricky to buckle it because the seatbelt's kind of low. You kind of have to reach and jiggle it around a bit. But overall, the seatbelt's just like a last resort thing. It doesn't detract from the ride experience. The restraints of this thing are fantastic, and honestly, they're up there with the clamshells. So a solid 10 out of 10 for restraints. They're honestly really comfortable, and I was not expecting that to be one of the stronger suits of the ride. Theming. Yeah, this is Six Flags here. In Six Flags typical fashion, the theming in this ride is non-existent. The only theming is that the cars look like Formula 1 drag racing cars. So, at least they made an attempt, and per policy of these reviews, I have to give them at least a 2 for having themed trains, or there's no backstory, there's no audio, there's no props or anything. It's just the train, and maybe a sleek look on a lot of things, and it goes fast. I don't know. I'm not going to count the ride elements as part of the theme, but yes, speed is the name of the game here. So 2 out of 10 for theming. This is definitely where they could have improved upon, but it's still, there's really barely any themed rides at Great America. Like X-Light's decently themed. Dark Knight is theming. Kind of obsolete theming as well, considering the movie's been out for a decade. Yeah, theming's never really the strong suit for Great America, but yes, there is kind of theming. Inversions. This ride packs 5 inversions, including 2 double inversions, or a double-double inversion, if I like to call it. They're all fun, but they're not outstanding. I think what's coming up next, the launch, is really the highlight of the ride. My favorite moments are the launch, the 0G roll, which is the 3rd inversion, and then the 90-degree stall that I think is an underrated moment on the ride. But other than that, the double inversion isn't really particularly good. It's kind of slow. It's kind of taken at a slow pace as well. And the final double inversion, one's just a 270-degree twist and then a dive loop into the brakes. I don't know. It's just there's the dog tongue 0G roll and then a 270-degree roll and then a dive loop into the brakes. And only the 0G roll really stands out to me. So I'm going to give the inversions a 6 out of 10 for it being, there's like 1 impeccable inversion. I also give at least 1 point per inversion unless they all suck. But yeah, that's what we got here. The launch, this thing is what is here. This is, I think, the first review I've ever done, or maybe one of 2, that has 9 categories. That's because there's 7 default ones, and then launch and inversions are the optional categories. Maxx Force's launch is among the world's elite, and I'd say it's probably most comparable to Xcelerator or Stormrunner. Xcelerator goes slightly faster, but accelerates slightly slower. And Storm Runner, probably Storm Runner is definitely slower and less accelerating, but definitely still packs a punch. And Storm Runner is the one I've bet on more, so it hits closer to home for me. It's fast, powerful, it knocks the wind out of you. I honestly prefer the Top Thrill Dragster's launch at times. Top Thrill Dragster is a consistent gray out, but it takes like 3 or 4 seconds to accelerate to 120 miles an hour. This thing goes from 0 to 78 in under 2 seconds. The number can range anywhere from like 1.6 to 1.8 seconds. I don't know if that number is official yet because I've heard even the operators saying different things. But yeah. And I also do want to say this thing also has no warning on when it's going to launch. Like, there's not a stoplight, there's not an alarm, there's nothing. You just have to listen to your car catch onto the catch car, and then you hear the cylinders firing up in front of you. And once the cylinders stop firing, you have about 3 to 5 seconds until you launch. I do also say that engaging with the launch pad or the catch car is also a bit finicky. Like, you can't get into the catch car until the train behind you is already in the station. They send you out, bring the second train into the station, and then you move forward to engage with the catch car. I can see why, because I feel like it'd be a little jarring for a train coming back to the station to also be rattled by the launch that's going on perhaps maybe 500 feet in front of it. Not even. But yeah, there's really, I think the launch you never expect when you're first riding it, but you'll listen to the sounds and the audio visual clues the more you ride it. I've gotten the timing more or less down. I'm usually within a second off of getting the launch, and not having any warning for the GP and even your first ride is freaky. This launch is insane. Probably my favorite launch like ever. And this thing makes V2 obsolete as well, because that launch is nothing compared to Maxx Force's. So overall, the combined score is actually a near perfect 60 out of 90, well, perfect ratio, being a 6.67 out of 10 average score. However, I will give this thing a solid, a really good 9 out of 10. Great America has a winner on their hands here. This is easily the best coaster of 2019. No, taking my knowledge of what I know from Yukon Striker, well, probably Untamed would be the best coaster for 2019, but in America at least, this is probably the best coaster for 2019, or North America. But I can put this thing above Copperhead Strike, put this thing above Yukon Striker. I think this thing, Steel Curtain is opening tomorrow, so Steel Curtain could get it, but I think Maxx Force is probably the best ride of 2019 in North America. It's a fantastic, fun ride. I recommend to anyone looking for a anyone looking for a really good thrill. The line is still very long, and it just opened like a week ago. Today is Friday, and it just opened 8 days ago to the public. And even then, it was down most of this past Monday, July 8th, for technical rehearsal. The locals have already talked to. This is many of their favorite rides. Like, I talked to a lot of enthusiasts I see because I bait them out wearing a Steel Vengeance or Fury 325 shirt. And this is already many of their favorite rides, over Goliath, over Bull, over any other of their personal favorites. I think this thing is an absolute winner for the park. And despite the long lines and poor efficiency, I think this thing is going to be a quality ride that, assuming they can keep the maintenance on it going and not have too terribly many breakdowns in terms of the next hypersonic XLC, this thing will be around for a long time to come. It's so good it renders an entire another coaster in the park obsolete. That's how good it is. So, yeah. That's my thoughts on Maxx Force. I think, like I said, it's an absolutely fantastic ride. And I really think that Great America has a winner on their hands here. And honestly, with this, they probably don't need to put another coaster for another 3 to 5 years. Probably wait till like 2025 for their 50th anniversary. I'd be completely cool with that. So, overall, I hope you guys have enjoyed this Maxx Force review. I don't know if I'm the first one on YouTube or if I'm a little late to the party, but I want to put in my hat in this ring. I hope you guys have a great insert unit time here. Feel free to like, comment, or subscription if I hadn't said that already. It does mean something to me talking to whoever watches this video and what limited communication I get. And, as always, happy riding if you're going to go out and get this thing for the first time. Hope you don't mind standing in a long, unshaded queue. And as always,